Good morning. So, is anybody out there, or am I generally just talking to myself? I know it is frightfully early. Well, when I say early, it is 10:30. That's wonderful distracting with that balloon doing it. All right. Gotta tell you, I am sitting in a restaurant here in Austria. Actually, I'm sitting in my hotel, but there is a restaurant. And because of this, there's a little bit of noise and stuff going on around me. Um, can you all hear me out there? Is the microphone working? Which I would suppose is somewhat important. Although my wife did say she hated to wake up to the sound of my voice. Outstanding. There's life. Um, well, good morning or afternoon, as it is on stateside. There you go. Outstanding. All right. I still like anybody who ended up with the nickname God of War. Hey, Paul. Hey, Bill. Hey, Daniel. Um, all right. Like I said, I'm sitting here in this really cool hotel that's been here for 250 some years in a small town here in Austria, and family owned businesses. You know how that's just amazing. And I actually have a picture of from the Anschluss that you showed me at the reception when Hitler drove past the reception up here. That's the wonderful thing about going to Europe in general. You have everything that just so much history, and not to take away from the East Coast, but and let me see if I start with a couple of travel tips there. When you go somewhere, you have to watch what the locals are eating. I'm looking at the waiter because I know it's a hint to him. Look at what the locals are eating, what they're serving them. That's not on the menu because there's some amazing stuff going on out here that well they can't put all the little local delicacies on the menu, so you have to track for them a little bit. And I ended up staying here for a few more days because thank you. Um, I was I left some 6 weeks ago, and I flew into Amsterdam because, well, I had to shoot the three different shows for you guys uh, that are somewhat different. And what is coming when I get home and I am done? This is really annoying. Isn't it really annoying that this thing is bouncing around? Well, sorry. Hello to Denmark. I was there. I was filming at Cornwall 5 days ago or 6 days ago. After 6 weeks of driving, hotels, filming, driving hotel films, sleeping in car, filming, there's a point where I sort of woke up in the morning and I really just had to for a minute, where am I? You arrive at 1 in the morning somewhere, just pre-book. Well, that looks like a hotel close to where I'm going. So I was filming at least one or two locations and walkthroughs every day. So I'm sorry. That's why I want to do live because it has just been really, really hectic. Of course, I booked with a whole lot of different historians throughout Europe, sites that we really wanted to see. On one hand, I wanted to go, hey, Finland, I got to come up and see the Mannerheim line, by the way. Um, I wanted to go to all General Kamla's locations, absolutely, and I have seen a lot of them, and that has very much confirmed a few things that I thought, and it has opened up a couple of other things uh, that I did not know. But for the most part, seeing these locations, and you'll get all the episodes this autumn, and you can see for yourself. It has very much confirmed some of the suspicions and the research I've done. So, spoiler alert, we found a third nuclear reactor in Germany from World War II. And I had two German nuclear atomic researchers with me, and they had no idea it was there. It belonged to Kurt Diepl. We knew he had a workshop, he had a lab, but he actually had another reactor. that you don't see in the history books. And it's going through all these different forts and different shows. And yes, there's castles, there's pre-war castles, a lot of three different things that I've series that'll be coming. But of course, for the Last Nazi Secret, we're trying to figure out what they were actually doing. And when you walk into this small school, there's only the basement building left. The school was torn down in 1990 because they built a new school. And you walk through there. We had to wait. Very, very small town. Hi, puppy dog. By the way, the owners have a dog. Family-owned business and a dog. 2 brothers and amazing food. Anyway, we showed up unannounced because we sort of knew it was there, and it's not publicized. It doesn't really have a website. You have to really look for it. Just we wanted to see Deepness Laboratory, or at least this site, just to see how big it was, how infrastructure and so on. So we had to go to the city hall there and find somebody. And at this point, we've been crawling through the Jonasdal tunnels all morning. So it's dirty and filthy and covered in mud. And we show up at the city hall and say, well, can we, mud? And we show up at the city hall and say, well, can we, open the big padlock on the door? It took a couple of hours, but fine. So we go in, the janitor shows up and he shows us around. And we step into this relatively small room, big two relatively small rooms, big basement with big arch basement. The building's several hundred years old. And we look at the circle in the back of the room. And we just look at each other and go like, that circle looks exactly like Heidelberg, like Heisenberg's. Now, the square reactor building that we were at Gatow, Deepness, we know about Gatow and we know about Heisenberg's and Heidelberg towards the end of the war. That, of course, had a round core. And then the square was just for the simplicity of building a square building. But the round center, where so on and so forth. So here's this hole in the ground, circle a hole, little indent for a crane. There's a lift overhead. They didn't know. We look at the janitor and go, like, is this where there was a reactor core from the war? And say, yes, I thought you knew. And all these little local secrets that are hiding somewhere. And there's no museum. There's no arrows. There's no. I would think that a third nuclear reactor would have been a big deal for World War II Germany. Now, what's interesting about this is there was no real infrastructure. This was not a big, enormous, elaborate building. There's no big power plant nearby. This was just a small reactor core, exactly like the one at Heidelberg. So it was read up to 30 or 40 millisieverts, not much. Of course, it'd been filled out with cement. Not a big deal. And my computer tells me that my connection is unstable. Can you guys still hear me? Anybody? Outstanding. All right, my computer says that you can't. My computer says I'm unconnected. Anyway, that must be a deeper personal issue. So you're looking at this place where there's a small reactor. I got pictures, and we're going to have more research. They did all their readings. There wasn't much radiation there. And then again, in the actual core at Gotthard, there was none. There was practically no radiation in there. But there was 40, 50, 60 millisieverts right outside because the reactor in Gotthard had a meltdown. So they lifted it out and sat the core down next to the building. And that spot is a little bit radioactive. So I wouldn't expect to find much. But I'm just surprised that it's there. I'm surprised that there's a small reactor in a small building in a small town that we haven't heard anything about. Because that leads me to think, And that is an honest assessment. If they can put it here, they can build a reactor everywhere. They could in the mountains, wherever you. This is a small, non-assuming building. There was no great amounts of power, water, anything we associate with nuclear energy anywhere near. Of course, this was also very close to where it's said that Divna tested two nuclear weapons. So this opens up a whole bunch of more questions. Like we should start tracking the uranium if we could, because the Americans took a lot of it, or all of it, and they got a lot of it gifted by submarine and so on and so forth. And it really does. It was one of those aha moments where you look at this site and this unassuming site and think, if there's a reactor here, holy hell, what else could there be and where? I will say, and I don't know if you followed Andreas Sulzer and his research out in Austria and Linz, but what we are all looking for is still sitting in the ground, and it's still there. And the Austrians are very not particularly keen on letting anybody look. Here's an interesting bit. The Germans are not particularly keen on letting anybody look and ask questions about this, nor the Austrians, nor the Czechs, nor the Poles, nor the Americans, nor the British. How did all these people... Könnte ich dann ein bisschen Kaffee haben? Ein Riesekaffee.
Ein Riesekaffee.
Riesekaffee mit alles. Danke. Sorry. Had a day off yesterday to edit, finish an episode, and I actually managed to go to the gym, so I am in pain, and I need coffee. So, hey, Belgium. I'll be in Belgium in 3 days. Again, amazing forts in Belgium. I mean, really phenomenal. That's the other thing I'm doing. There's going to be 2 more series, Great Forts, where I'm visiting great forts, fortresses, castles from around the world. And we are not also in the U.S., talking about the battlements, talking about their history. Anything from, like I said, I went to Denmark to the Royal Castle of Kronborg. I filmed there. There are several castles in France, Belgium, Holland, Germany. I did a full official interview out at Schloss Fürstenstein. Interesting people. So I got to see a lot more tunnels there. And again, from what I saw a few days ago, you could put a reactor pretty much anywhere. Hey, New Zealand. Atlantic. Oh. I wanted to go to the UK because I am going to talk Dag Kinnieveld into doing a castle tour of the UK, from the oldest to the newest castles. However, I also had to postpone my trip to Norway. I was going to go do something with History Hunter, but they wanted quarantine before we go to both 7 days of quarantine in Norway and the same thing for the UK. I do not have the time, inclination, or money to sit in a hotel room for 7 days and do nothing, when I could spend those 7 days filming something and then wait for a month or two until travel embargoes are canceled and we can actually get to travel. And I will go to spend quite some time in the UK. Vielen Dank.
Schön.
Ganz schön. Man muss seinen Kaffee haben. Das ist wichtig. Ohne Kaffee kein Leben. I'm just throwing German at you just for the hell of it. Yes, I will absolutely to fact checkers what censor is 15 or 75 years ago. You'd be surprised. I think I'm on fairly good terms with YouTube because I apparently seem to make them a little bit of commercial revenue. And I don't swear much. I try to follow the rules. However, I am setting up a Patreon. Well, I have set it up. I just don't know how it works yet. Cross that bridge when I get home. Few other things on that. A lot of these shows will also be cleaned up slightly, and I have caught myself in making a few mistakes because, as historians, sometimes you read other historians' information or books, and you think that you see their documentation and you quote them because you have the impression that they are correct. And then when you get on the ground, you find out, well, they're not really correct. They're not even remotely correct. But I've still quoted them. So some of the old episodes will be cleaned up nicely, and they will end up on Amazon because I did a deal with them, and they'll be safe. And eventually, I will do something on my website where we can have an open free chat just for us and members, not a paying thing or anything like that, just where we can actually exchange information and remember all the documents or whatever I found. And I actually got 27 pages from the CIA on Kamla. Interestingly enough, it was outlines of tunnels, schematics of a lot of tunnels. And I shared them with George Rabiensky from the Jonas Saal Verein. And I can't say too many times how impressed and how thankful I am for some of the guys out here that step up when I show up in the middle of, oh, by the way, I would like to visit your whatever you have in the backyard. Could you please take a day out of your schedule and just show me around? And most people, quite frankly, all of them, they say yes. I am stuck in Austria right now, which really, for those of you who have not been to Austria, is not the worst thing in the world. I am an hour's drive from Berchtesgaden. I am 20 minutes drive from Ebensee. It is stunningly beautiful out here. The food is absolutely amazing. The weather is awesome. The people are extremely friendly. So honestly, yeah. But it's the first 2 days I had of downtime where I could catch up and start answering questions. And did a little episode from actually the first day I landed out in the fortress in Belgium. Because the weather was so bad, I have to go back to Belgium and France and actually do the drone shots because it was raining for the first 2 weeks I was there. But yes, that's what I was thinking, open forum. And yes to the UK because, as you all know, Drakeniefeld is a big medieval historian interest as well. Maybe we can get both he and I in some armor and go jousting. But I think I can talk him into doing a tour of the castles from the medieval days up till, I think we're going to stop being interesting in the 18th century. Hot coffee. And so, yes, I will be in England. I will eventually also go to Norway. Don't worry, you still get cannons from the Gneisenau, because I found some of the other cannons from the Gneisenau, and I'll show you guys those. For Lost Battlefields, it'll be a lot, but I wanted to do one for castles. And then, Lady Blah. What are you guys talking about? Can't lock down a lady. That's something completely different. Royal ammunition. When I'm getting up, Daniel, you know I'm going to come up see you guys. I'll figure at least. I know you canceled the War and Peace show, which is really annoying. That would have been a great excuse. But as soon, how and why did I become a YouTube historian for World War II? I'm not a YouTube historian. I'm a historian with a YouTube channel because YouTube is a good outlet and way to communicate with you all. I believe I was a historian when I started studying. Well, when I finished my master's in history, I believe that was where I wrote my first 3 books. Probably, you pick one. Yes, there are other outlets than YouTube. This is just easy, and obviously, like I said, we are also talking to some of the networks. But if you do a network deal for The Great Castles or Lost Battlefields or Last Nazi Secret, you know it's going to be cut into 44-minute sections and from highlight to highlight because that's the way they want it. So there will always need to be a YouTube outlet, or even if I just put it privately on the website, there will need to be an outlet where I can spend 2-3 hours and really dive into a location. because that's what we're here for. We need to investigate something, and mainstream television and the outlets, they have just become sensationalism. And here's something I really want to tell you that is really interesting. Um, I sorry, I keep an eye on what guys are um, are writing as well. Um, I will in a minute when I'm done ranting about what I'm doing. I'll just take a minute, and just be quiet, and just answer your questions. Danke dir, Servus. Um, what I found is a lot of people, especially here, especially Germany, Austria, France to a degree, certainly Poland, are very openly distrustful of media, of networks, of television reporters, because apparently over the years, over the decades, there has been streams of television networks out filming who have blatantly misrepresented or edited around what they said. And I saw the same thing up in Berchtesgaden, where I met a lady that I really want to have a beer with, because she was very, very bitter and had obviously had some interactions with Discovery channels, with History Channel, and she has access to tunnels. And she was not happy. It took me half an hour to explain who I was, what I said, and what I have written, and my family heritage, to actually win her over. Her dog was a lot easier to win over. And I hope she's watching this, because I really want to come back. And there's a story there. And there's a lot of stories that have been unreported or completely misreported through history. And like you said, if you go back 75 years, we go back to the time of the war or past the war, there was a narrative that was set up that this is the way it was. And this is the technology, and this is how that was. And this is the technology tree, and that's how that was. And we don't rock those things. There's also other things that was established around the time of 45, 46. Certainly, the denazification process of Germany really had an effect, and still has an effect today, because, and like I said, I'm not taking sides, I'm not making any excuses. I just want to hear or know what happened. And I think it's sad when you, as in Germany or Austria, link everything to the atrocities that happened or was done or committed, because there's so much more we can, as I hope that's what I'm doing, is I'm compartmentalizing the war a little bit in, this is an amazing fort, look at the technical development in this fort, look at what this thing could do, look at what they built, or look at this research they did, and maybe they did something else. I can take things and separate them, but they're very not, they don't want, they're afraid, literally afraid to do that out here, because they will get run over. And like I said, just in the States, if you have the wrong public opinion, you might lose your job, you'll go to jail. Here they might actually go to jail because of the laws here. It's a fine line to walk, because you don't want to offend anybody, of course, although thinking independently, that probably offends someone to begin with, so you can't and I'm trying to find information. I'm trying to sort of guide people to understand that there's more than what is in the mainstream history books. And then you got to look at who wrote the mainstream history books, and who wrote the books based on the books that was written. And then the next historian wrote another book based on the other two books. And where did it all start? I think, and we are repeating it in a direction that would scare even the Romans. And you're right. But when you see locals, that has nothing to do with politics, there's nothing to do with history, they don't make money from this, and they are bitter because they knew what their grandparents did, and it's not how they're portrayed. What do? I mean, I see it all over. There's a seem to be okay. Let me rephrase that. Um, if you're not part of evil, then do research. Well, I am doing research. That's what I'm doing. I'm actually crawling around through tunnels to see what was there. I can't do much more research than that. And yes, the Russians have a lot of stuff in their archives, and that is the next point of call, because problem with the locations are sometimes you will just not be allowed to dig into something that you know is 3, 4, 5 meters beneath you, and you know it's there. And Andreas Schulze, he must know that feeling. He found something the Germans hid before the Americans got there, covered up before the Russians got there from the Americans, still covered up. No one knew it was there until he started digging for it, and he found it. And the moment he found it, the Austrian government shut him down digging. And I think part of the problem is a lot of the people who are actively stopping people from doing physical research, they don't even know why. They've just been told that that's how it is. I don't think they even necessarily know, like both in Austria, Poland, other places, the people who are in control of digging in certain places or those countries' forest administration. I don't know if forest administrations have any links to intelligence, but intelligence can pretty much link themselves to anything they want. And if there's a directive, don't let people dig in these areas, then they won't be allowed to. And the forest administration don't even know why, probably. I don't think it is a conspiracy in the sense that every government agency has decided to, well, we are going to cover up these secrets XYZ, but that's in effect what's happening, even though most of the people, they don't exactly know why they're doing it. And then, of course, then there's the ghost of the denazification process means that in Germany, it's better to just not talk about it, not answer the questions, don't open the door, don't dig the hole, because we don't know what we'll find, and it may be bad. But what's bad? What will be so bad? They find technology. Maybe they found out the Germans were far more advanced in the technology and the research than we thought, and this research went on to the Russians and the British and the Americans by far. What's the problem? Well, the problem might be that, well, it might make people, well, it's a narrative that's been kept for 75 years. You shake that loose, then people can start asking, just like you see in the media today. Once we start seeing things are not true, then we ask ourselves, what else was said that wasn't true? And of course, if you accept that the Germans, Austrians, did significant special research, then you have to give them credit for it. And you don't want to give them credit because they're just a bunch of evil Nazis. See the problem? So there's a lot of little reasons why nobody wants to open those doors. What I want to know is, does the military want to release these doors? So anyway, let's face it, I think, honestly, I am 99.9% certain the Germans tested several nuclear devices of some sort. Smaller, tactical, whatever. There's research that was going on that we absolutely have not heard of. And I've stood outside radioactive tunnels where no one can explain where the radiation comes from, but most certainly you can't be allowed to go in and have a look because there's nothing there. And seriously, and this is the frustrating part, when you hear officials say there's nothing there, so you can't look. Really, that's the argument you're going to go with. Then we all know that, all right, this is just, yes. Agreed. And this is at this point in time, it's not even about, it's not about Nazis. It's about research done by German scientists. Let's go with that. And yes, horrible things happened and people died. And you go through these places. That you have another problem with people that fought on both sides of the war. Certainly, that was another problem. Thanks for sharing that, by the way, Saul. People died for this. People died in these tunnels. And it was very, very interesting. I went to see the cement tunnels, and they were, again, really, really nice. I have pretty much been allowed to go and see and do anything anywhere I wanted to go, except the tunnels of Obersalzberg, because it's very much a museum that is focused on the Holocaust and not on what actually took place at Obersalzberg. You go to the tea house, I don't think there's a single picture of Hitler or Eva, which would say this is a historical place because of these people. Let's show them there. Let's show who visited it. That's just me. I just want to see. If you want to see other things, you go to places where those things happen. Again, that's just me. But other than there, I couldn't really go crawl around through. But there's not much to see there at all either. There's a big document center, a lot of pictures that has nothing to do with Obersalzberg, and the tunnels are. Anyway, I was saying something completely different. I rant. Where's Joseph when we need him? Joseph says hi, everybody. I asked if you wanted to join, but he is undergoing storms and tornadoes. Exactly. Or I went to the cement tunnels, which is a huge complex here to Ebensee. There's a concentration camp next to it where they built huge tunnels where they built airplane parts. And they did. And those tunnels are exceedingly impressive. And of course, I got beyond the locked door, behind the gates, and crawled into the mountain. Next to there is a cement. It's called Cement. It was also codenamed Cement. However, there was a business that did mining there from way before the war called Cement, with a C. And so when you see the code name is Cement, it's kind of silly because that's the name of the business that the SS used for these tunnels. And these tunnels are, I can't describe, enormous. And that's one thing that's really hard on the camera, is to show how big something is or how deep a shell crater is. It's very hard to get that depth of field. These were enormous. You could park 3 trains, 2 trains, and another train on top of these tunnels. And there were about 13 kilometers of them. They're enormous. And there are little buildings inside these tunnels. And you walk, it's amazing. I had to promise that if I killed myself or got hurt or something stupid in there, it would be my own fault. And obviously, of course it is. It was the first time this trip I actually wore a helmet. Except the paperwork that I signed, that if I had died in there, it was my fault. I didn't get to sign that until I came out. But he just opened the door and said, go crazy. So I walked around there for hours and hours and hours. And these enormous tunnels that, of course, were built by force. Somebody who worked in there, and there's a shoe sitting in incredibly good condition, I might add. And it kind of pulls it together that I can differentiate between the interest of the research and the people who were forced to work on it and die doing so. And that is the frustrating part. While you're there, whether you are in Goosen, in Linz, in Poland, wherever you are, when you have these constructions, people die building them. And when we have questions as to what these things were or what this research was, there are families today that don't really know, or they don't know, what their wartime relatives died doing. And they were building something that we are not allowed to hear today what was. And I think it's been so long, we can take the animosity aside, and we should be able to pull the politics out and stick it where the sun don't shine and say, I want to know, for the respect of the people who died, why? What were they doing? And I said that before, if I died doing something, building something, I would want a placard on that thing for the rest of eternity with my name on it saying I did this, even if I was forced to do it. And I think it's larger in cheese money. Yay! I don't think I've had cheese in Austria, but I had a schnitzel that's to die for here. Kind of hoping the chef will one day let me do a documentary about the kitchen, about how to make a real schnitzel. Yes, I'm hinting, and he's just ignoring me. It's, there's a dog sleeping over here, the owner's dog. It's amazing. Um, but I think we owe it to a lot of dead people. And I know governments really don't care about dead people because they're dead. And yes, you can make money from museums and memorials and all that, but we don't. You see to some degree today. You see there's government when the soldiers come home and they're wounded or they got hurt, they have problems. They always try to sort of skirt away from that. Australia. Oh, you locked down out there? I thought you had so much space. You had free air. Um, yeah, I know. The truth is a problem, which is another thing that's very interesting when you look at museums or fortresses. There's a rather large amount of politics going on internally in a lot of these places that are being restored. Because I'm sitting right by the door and it's windy and it's kind of a paper lamp. So I, I can't really fix it. Um, put my giant head in front of it. Yes, I can do that. Turn a little bit. It's a nice mirror, though. I said this hotel is 250 years old, but the lamp isn't. Um, which actually, the man is a family business, 5 generations, and let's see if I can. I don't know if I can actually show you this on my web camera. This is this is the hotel I'm at of the day at the Anschluss, and the hotel is a building, and it's Hitler in the car right in front of the hotel, um, where I am. Um, I mean, nothing in that sense significant took place here. It's just the most important thing that's really taking place here is amazing food. Anyway, where were we? 19 burst of the world's. Huh. Okay, Striker. Let's talk about that. I can't say Striker without thinking about the movie Airplane. And if you haven't seen the movie Airplane, both of them, you need to. Just saying, get that off the table. Um, well, the problem is, I don't think there is an. I tried, thank you. I don't think there's. Yes, on a military high level, there's a lockdown of documentation and research that they don't want out because, for one hand, it might cause embarrassment. I have heard some very, very interesting stories about things that the U.S. military might have done towards the end of the war that involved resulting in more death of some of the forced laborers that had been found by the Germans. Like it's not confirmed yet, but there are also the possibility of atrocities. There's also the possibility of questions being asked about, well, why exactly did you bomb this place and kill all these innocent people? Um, there's several reasons why governments won't let things out. One is, of course, there's an active cover-up because it's a military secret still today that's in use. That maybe the outside is that they worked on something so secret that it's still in use today, and that's why it's still secret. Fine. And I was said, well, if there are men in black that want to scare people, well, fine, give me a call and tell me. Sit down and tell me what it is. I still have a uniform and a military ID card. I know they kind of wondered. My 2-star broke me the other day and asked when I'm coming back. And I said, I really don't know. When I'm out of money. But I still have respect for the position in the military I do hold. That if someone sits me down and said this is a secret for that reason, I will accept that if It's national security. I get it. But I have a hard time thinking that most of the stuff that was done by at that time, even if it was 20-year advanced or 30 years advanced, should be secret for that reason. So then there's the embarrassment of, well, we did something we really shouldn't have done. That's the reason why you keep things secret. Then there are thousands and thousands of boxes in archives in Russia, in Germany, in America, in England that just have not been sorted yet. They brought over tons and tons of documents. Quite possibly, people don't even know what they're sitting on. And then you have, well, we don't really just want to let people look because we don't really know what's there. So just for the sake of, we don't have time to look, but we don't want them to discover something that might be embarrassing. We don't have time to declassify these things. That's another reason. And then there's, when you come to here, is you have a lot of things that are on the ground that you can find, and you can deduct that, well, this must, XYZ, this must be the, and but you can't really go to look because then they'll come up with, well, it's dangerous, can't get permits. If something happens, it's their fault. If you find something, you have to clean it up. Can you afford it? There's all these different reasons that usually revolve around bureaucracy. I don't know if you noticed for the past 20 years, just take the past 20 years, things have gotten harder to do. They're more expensive to do. They take longer to do. Go back 20, 30, 40 years, things were easier. During the war, you could do things. Just look at Borman's tea house, built in less than a year with all the best technicians, where there was just a mountain. You couldn't do that. It's longer a can-do world. We need to assess, and then we need to set up a committee, and we need to talk about it. And oh, well, this is terrible. And do you have all genders represented in this project? And nothing gets done. Which is also why you can't always get permits. It's not like there's, to a certain degree, always a malicious reason. It is just sheer stupidity or lack of money. Thank you, Miz. Yes, Russia is going to be very interesting because I don't speak Russian. I don't read it. So, and they won't let me in on any of my passports at this point in time. Okay, let me get. German companies don't want. Oh, the German companies. Oh, yes. A lot of the business that was established or set up or by the SS at that time, they're still in existence. They're still in business. And honestly, there are businesses from World War One that's still in business. And there's something. Okay, let me take a couple of questions. I'll think of an airplane. Yes. You have Operation Paperclip with von Baum, but the problem is, well, Klaus Barbie wasn't part of Paperclip, and he worked for the CIA for 1 or 2 decades. There's other projects than Paperclip. There's various degrees of classification where Paperclip was probably relatively low. So, yeah, and it's funny. Everybody's Istra Center. That sounds interesting. Yeah, I love it when you agree with me. After all, it's my channel. It's not a democracy. Oh, God. And Paperclip was low because, like I said, Barbie wasn't part of that. There's people the CIA dragged over, and the CIA started with the OSS, and the OSS most certainly had work relations or relations with, say, the SS within German intelligence. And what the hell is a shill? Anyway, the interesting thing about trying to answer questions as well. All right, I see you have all seen Airplane. Some of you, yes. Honestly, I haven't watched anything on TV for years. I just watch old TV shows and or British TV shows or old movies that are still funny. Um, it, it is not unusual. Okay, let's just talk about the SS for a minute. You will have the visit Fort and Antwerp. Um, yes, I might actually make that in a few weeks. Um, okay, some people have some interesting. Ta-da. Like I said, um, my channel is not a democracy. So, war militarily, there's not really much doubt about that. And that was pretty much on the cards quite early on. It might even have been on the cards from the beginning when they started the war without enough fuel reserves, without the economic or the industrial backup in full gear. If they started wartime production in 38, 39 and really built and created everything they had, the war could have gone differently. There's a lot of decisions that was made that could have gone differently. But let's talk about the SS. I'm not sure the SS lost the war. The Waffen SS were on the losing side of the war and were shot as prisoners in droves around forests or killed by the Russians or worked to death. And eventually, some of them actually got out and went to France and fought with the French Foreign Legion because there was no other room for them. So we're not talking about the Waffen SS. I'm talking about the SS as an organization, which is a very interesting organization, which had a lot more resemblance to a business than it did to anything else, because they had relations to all the big businesses, and this was about money. And the slave labor was a source of money to the SS. They established businesses after businesses, gave them contracts in return for money. They rented them slave labor in return for money. They had products made, and get this, that they sold to the Reich. The SS had stuff made, whatever they made and produced, they sold it to the Reich. They didn't give it. They weren't part of the Reich in that sense. You would think that the SS made stuff, and then, of course, they gave it to the war effort. No. They sold it to the war effort. And of course, this whole conglomerate of SS, of intelligence, of supreme power, because they could do pretty much whatever they wanted to do, would have international relations. They would have intelligence connections, just like you remember the missile crisis with the Kennedys. They had guys talk between the Russians and the White House. There's always a connection to your enemy. You can always find a way to talk. All the people who say we don't talk to someone of ours are talking to someone of theirs, because in this world you just need to. And the SS and the OSS, absolutely, they had connections and they were communicating. There's also a way why it was possible for Kamla to surrender all the rocket scientists and von Braun and Dornberg and all the technology to the Americans, not to the Russians. It destroyed everything in advance of before the advancing Russians. So when we come to who won the war, well, the SS was a business organization that already saw the military war being lost, started working on transferring assets out of Europe, patents and so on and so forth. Ananeva is coming. Can't do it all from here. They were working on this before the war ended. They were ready for the war to end, parts of it. And I'm saying the top parts. I'm not talking about the dudes that were sitting on the wall in the camps, or the people that were fighting here and there, because quite frankly, it was compartmentalized. One guy in the CIA, for instance, doesn't know what the guy in the office next to him is doing, or the guy across the hall. There's no information sharing. There's not like there's an internal newspaper monthly. So for the SS as an organization, as a business organization, to have survived the war, yes, absolutely they did. Morgan, so that was Am I there? Am I not there? Ooh, I can back up away before I forget what I was saying. Happens all the time. All right. Um, I never told you why I was stuck here for 2 days. There is a V2 testing facility not far from here, and it's not one of the ones you've ever seen on any of the TV shows. And it was an underground factory, and this was an actual testing site. And I crawled through Kummersdorf, and I went to Peenemünde, where most of it's destroyed, so I know what they look like. And it took me a little bit of wrangling and a promise to not share the location because it is now on the site of a business, and we absolutely respect that. But I get to see it, and I get to drag my camera, and I get to show you guys. That's that's the hotel dog. There's the little hotel puppy dog that guards the whole street here. That half the street gets closed off in the afternoon, and the little puppy dog here is running back and forth up and down the street, and, monitoring everything. We are Austria. Uh, and oh yeah, we should talk about the henge before it kills me. And but anyway, so there's something going on. I've never seen a rocket test facility that large, fenced in that much today. Letting me do that. Eisenhower's Rhine River death camps. Uh, oh yeah. So yes, the German prisoners of war after the Janice, if I talk about it, there's a book that was written about it. The German prisoners of war taken by the Allies and their plight in the year after the war, the years after the war, was, let me put it this way. A book was written called Other Losses about how German prisoners were starved to death en masse in Allied camps after the war. And I'm pretty sure everything bad that possibly could happen happened to the author of that book, including losing his job and livelihood and everything else. It's one of those things I would very much like to look into that absolutely nobody wants to talk about. If it's true, or if there's a whole, did he do that? Did he, Scholl, did he talk about German prisoners of war being starved or killed or died after internment? Because the hunger camps, yeah, it's one of those things that I would like to see where they were. No, that's the thing. Did they do it on purpose, or didn't they do it on purpose? The Russians obviously did. All right, I'll take a look at what Mark did on that, because I don't think I've seen it. I would like to see the sites. I would like to, because if it was claimed that 1 million German prisoners of war or more were starved to death by various allies in camps where they weren't fed, and the locals were not allowed to feed them, and mistreatment and so on and so forth. I would need to look into it to do an actual realistic look at this. Also, if there were that many, I'm not saying that it did, and I'm not saying that it didn't. I started reading the book, Other Losses, and quite frankly, halfway through, I was so, I don't get upset, I get pissed off. I was so pissed off that if just half of that was true, that was just a horrendous travesty. And people will say, well, the Nazis killed a bunch of people. They worked people to death. So they had it coming. People will say stuff like that, and you get like, well, wait a minute. We were supposed to go into this war as the Allies by being a better alternative, by being different, by being better. So if that's true, how are we then better? Again, we can look at what Churchill facilitated to the British Empire and to German cities and then British cities. Look at who started the bombing campaign of civilians. There were, if you look at it realistically, World War II there are sometimes good guys do horrible things, and sometimes bad guys do good things. It is not black and white. And I think at this time we can be honest about what actually happened. I thought it was a million. If you read the book, let me know what you think. Again, if there was that many thousands of dead, there would be graves somewhere to be found. It will be interesting to see the site of these graves and talk to the locals. It is one of those topics. There's a few topics I don't want to touch. I would love to. And in the back of my mind, there's a whole lot of thoughts going on about them. But publicly, I know how contentious that is, which is, yeah, I know. There are things that sometimes it's just better to stay away from and focus on the military part or the research part or the technology part or the construction part, because it's one of those things that I would not want to say anything about unless I really had documentation either way. And so let's talk about the henge just for the hell of it, because what was the question? We were talking about the henge and the tunnels, and we've been going back and forth trying to outline these. That might be one of these reasons why we would want a private chat room where we can have a conversation and openly express opinions and suggestions and thoughts and research without anybody deciding to take offense. I've always said offense is something you can do. I'm not going to start writing letters, but that's how some people do. There will be politics. Yeah, I know that. So anyway, let's go back to the henge, because that's just weird. Yeah, that's true too. But if they did it in the after the war, then it becomes, there was a lot of people that died in the months after the war because everything was bombed. There's no food, there's no medicine. But if you start looking at people that are dying a year after, it becomes a little bit stranger. I have a Patreon, I just don't know how it works. Yes, I thought. All right. Well, I do every now and again. Okay, chocolate raspberry hang on for a minute. Chocolate raspberry flavored coffee. I don't know how to feel about that, but I may have to try it. Chocolate raspberry. Yeah, actually, it sounds good. All right. Well, I went back to the henge, obviously, and I have been asking that question about radiation sickness for a long time. At Jonastal, it appears that the bodies were burnt, and there were radiation sickness symptoms going on after the nuclear test in the days after. The SS doctors were apparently very busy. They were asking for volunteers, a lot of nausea, headaches. There were a lot of symptoms reported and a lot of sick people around Jonastal the day after that test. So, yes, there actually was, Daniel, quite a few reports on that. And someone gets up this. Can we have this? Yeah, I will. because and that's also one of the reasons why I want to start doing tours where we can actually pile in a bus and drive around and see these sites together, and we can actually have a conversation. Um, anyway, okay, so fine, all right. Lisa, I did a very long. Okay, the sites, the locations of Project Riese, which has nothing to do with Ludwigslust and the Henge. Those two things are somewhat separate. But there's a Polish gentleman who has bought. He owns the whole location of the Henge, and he owns the one of the tunnel systems from the Riese called Riese. And I did a very long interview with him in Polish, so I had no idea what he said. I really didn't. I had a translator with me. I'm one of the greatest Polish guys I met. Polish veteran, Alex, deployed 7 years with the Polish Army. He's a doctor, and he does a whole lot of geo studies and travels around. Really, really cool guy. One of the most energetic people I've ever met. And if you start at 6 in the morning, at 8 in the evening, he's still ready to climb the mountains. And I just want to look for an off switch. I hope you're listening, Alex. And he was the translator, and he didn't. Yes, you didn't. You were going to. Anyway, so I have a very, very long interview with him about what he has found, and he's very interested in looking for things himself. Also, and am I freezing again? Oh, Dulles, God, yes. I would like to see his actual memoirs. Anyway, so there's going to be a whole lot coming from the Riese and from the Henge location, because I have a bunch of documents about the dynamite plant, what they did, what they produced. I have a list of what they produced, and I need all of it translated into English so I can actually tell you, because it is all in Polish. I have been told some of what's in there. But anyway, I wanted to go there because I had gotten a hint that there would be, of course, pipes leading to the Henge. And at this point in time, if you ask me what the Henge was, I'm saying it is a cooling tower. The pictures post-war back that up. It was built before the war, or just at the beginning of the war, supposedly with the intention of well, that's the problem. Why? They didn't rebuild or the power plant. The power plant wasn't enlarged. So why such a huge, enormous cooling tower? Maybe they were going to. Here again, papers in Breslau at the archive in Polish that I need to translate and have a look at. But there would, of course, if they built it and it was supposed to be connected to the power plant, then there would be the connections. And those I wanted to find, and I found them, and you've probably all seen that episode, because, because it's paper. A lot of it's paper. And I want to do it absolutely right, so I'm actually going to have a company do it, try and do the translation proper, because I don't want to miss anything. Sometimes Google Translate gets it a little wrong, and then I get it wrong, and then a Polish general will call me and yell at me and tell me that I was wrong. Yes, that actually happened. And that's fine. But it's not, but it happens. I just don't want to make mistakes because of Google Translate or mistranslations. That's petty. So anyway, so I wanted to find those holes in the walls, and I did, and found the mount for it, and the two pipes up there. We talked about the opening up those pipes and see if there's any residual anything in them. That I can do, absolutely. I can also do the ground penetrating radar on the site to find out where the tunnels were, because I don't know if you saw me follow these tunnels above and underground. No sense. But there is a tunnel connection that can be made from the Henge Basin and all the way up to the new mine building, which is really, really strange. And we can go, even if whatever it was wasn't finished or constructed or built. or completed, they had an intention of funneling cooling pipes in underground into the mine buildings of that size. That's not for power tools. That use compressors for that for mining. So yeah, that's really strange. Tunnels do not circle around. That was one of the questions. They don't. They sort of circle up. They spiral up into the mountains in a couple of different directions. I did a little map. It, like I said, I want to put it out there for you guys so you can see it while I'm still here, because you're as impatient as I am. Well, the basin of the cooling tower, you had several meters in the bottom, and it was full of water because it was, of course, watertight, and it was painted with waterproof paint. And you had these pillars in between, and people were swimming in it because, well, there's a basin in the bottom of a cooling tower. They were actually talking about turning it into a public pool after the war, and then a kid drowned in it, and they got filled up with dirt. I want you to come to Berlin in July. July? 8 World War veterans going to a concentration camp in Dulwich. Really? July? When in July? All right. Well, could you shoot me an email on that, because I'm still here. Not entirely out of money, but I'm still here. I have LiDAR scans of that whole area. And honestly, LiDAR is not as awesome as I had hoped it would be. What we really need is a ground-penetrating drone that will go down some 20, 40 meters. It exists. I'm pretty damn sure I can't afford to rent it. But I will put together a document package that I'll either upload or stick in an episode. But I'll let you know that I upload through the website where I have the LiDAR scans, the overviews, the pictures. There's some really weird stuff going on when it comes to Lower Silesia, when it comes to that whole Riese area. The internet again. It'll only cover top areas, and we need to go underground. That's the real thing. The entire FS of Olkenhausen, found by the Freemasons, shows Hitler's order to entrust to it. Carly, could you send me what you have on that in an email? Because that is the first I actually hear of him. Out here, a ginormous thing that can see 400 meters underground, and they were going to fly it clearly across Europe, one into the other. And when it came to the Jonastal tunnel system, the military proving grounds, they were not allowed to fly over it. And people who have tried to fly their drones over Jonastal get shot down, actually. Also, my may or may not have snuck into the top of the proving ground area. I can't tell, but possibly I could have, in my complete bewilderment, have stumbled in there. The digital compass doesn't work in there. They just keep spinning. Jonastal is a place to watch because something is going on there. And Goosen out by Linz, something is going on out there. That is the two areas where I am at this point. I'm certain that there's something. Riese, there's something going on out there, and it consists of several things that we see everywhere. People who do not want to talk about the past, old people who do not want to talk about the past, or people who are readily going to tell you every story they can possibly think of, or come up with, or have heard. It's the people who don't want to tell me anything that I want to talk to, and that takes a little longer for obvious reasons. In Poland, you had the Germans who were living there under almost practically within an SS Speergebiet, where they were all Germans. They weren't Polish at that time. They were under strict orders to keep mouths shut under the SS during the war. Then the Polish moved in, and the Russians moved in. Same thing. Then you had the Cold War, where they were sitting again with another secret intelligence. So the SS secret intelligence network was just replaced by the Polish and the Russian one after the war. So looking at people who for 50, 60, 70 years have lived in the veil of don't talk, you don't go to prison, of keeping these things secret. Where during the Cold War, if they were to go sneak into these tunnels and find something, and the authorities find out, well, you get picked up in the middle of the night. So even now that you are 30 years past that, when you talk to the old generation and you come and start, people who are still scared today to talk about things they may have seen 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago. And that's interesting because the nuclear weapons, or the three looked like nuclear weapons, I'll get you all the scans, the 3D scans of that, so you can tell for yourself, that disappeared. He was supposed to come and look at the ground, and he was scared to, because somebody had gotten to him, and in no certain way had explained to him to just not show up in that area again. Why would anybody do that? People are still being warned off by someone, and I keep telling those someone, come tell me. I'll tell you guys all, if I start doing videos of puppies with a wide-angle lens, well, then probably somebody will talk to me. But I would love to hear the reasoning. Because why are people so scared after so long? And they're genuinely afraid to talk about these things. And that's what I find interesting. Which means that there are parts of what happened during the war that are still in some active way being monitored or kept under wraps. Which is why I would like to think that I could find something interesting in the Russian archives, because they don't seem to have should not have any bones in this game at this point. Ravenshed in Ostende, Belgium. Is that where the V2 launch facility was? Sorry, I'm drowning in names and locations. Offhand, I do not. Ostende? I think I've been to Ostende. Remind me, Danny, is that where the V2 sites are? And we can make sense. We have a few things we could make that would shoot across the ground without much noise issue. Well, they shoot down things that are flying in the air or driving on the ground or has any kind of signature. So it would have to be, well, I would imagine they pick it up with radar. Here's another interesting thing about Yunastal. There's nothing to see there. There's 25 little tunnels. Switzerland and SS had bank accounts in Switzerland, so something went to Switzerland. That low, that high, you come anywhere within that proving grounds, and things get shot down. Even the guys that was looking for the Polish gold train was there, and their drone did not come back. They had the big one, wouldn't even take off the ground. So, well, money is money. And believe me, all of this is about money. And technology is about money. And the World War II research is about money. Have we recently gone to war to protect the lives of the innocent anywhere? Thank you. He said with some bitterness. So anyway, we're talking about Yunastal. Why don't you visit Britain-Paul now? I don't know. I don't know. I don't think I'm that far from Balnau. I don't think there's anything there. I don't think there's anything there. And if there was there, it probably would be it probably would not be a historical site over his life. The censor affidavit, yes, absolutely. There's something, yes. And I think I promised one of you guys. I heard that there were guys with Geiger counters running around checking the V2 detonation sites in England. and the D-Day beaches. Uh, the D-Day beaches, I cannot for the life of me find that document where I read it. It could have been a quote from a different, from another historian. Um, Although I don't see it implausible at all. Uh, Radiation was certainly something that they were well aware of at the beginning, even before the war. Everyone was aware of it. Whether they took it serious or not is a um, different story. There's an interesting account that when in 1938, when Hitler was told of the possibility of that avenue um, for that reason, which I suppose you could describe as a positive, which is why nobody want to talk about that part. Um, they had the reactor going. I don't know anything about that reactor yet, except I was very surprised that it was there. Now I have to go back and figure out from the documents how long it's been there. Um, there's some mention. One of the local researchers there said that some of the uranium from there had been shifted to Hagelock, to Heisenberg's reactor, and consolidated there, which I find surprising because Heisenberg and Deebner, being two completely different types of researchers, practical versus theoretical, did not particularly like each other. And I don't have the impression they really worked well together. Just an impression based on peripherally statements. Um, well, if the problem was, I think they had nuclear weapons and I think they had them ready to produce, but I don't think they had the delivery system ready, and I don't think they had gotten to the mass production of the production yet, which meant that if they had a few that they couldn't deliver, it would not have won them the war. It would just have cost a whole lot more, even more pissed off Russians, Americans, and British soldiers that was already on German and almost Austrian soil. That's why I don't think they used them, because they couldn't deliver them, or they couldn't deliver enough of them. And I think they were looking at, the Germans were experts in miniaturizing things, so they were looking at smaller tactical nuclear weapons. And what are you going to do if you have 1 million Americans on one end and 1 million Russians on the other? So you kill 50,000 here and there, and 2 or 3. Well, actually, the Russian army at the end of the war, 1945, had 11 million soldiers. How many miniature nuclear weapons do you have to use? And I don't think they had that many. So using them as a bargaining chip would make more sense, because, like I said, the SS was about business and about money. And if you nuke London or Moscow, no one's going to do business with you afterwards because you crossed that line. If you trade your know-how and your weaponry, well, then people will talk to you afterwards. And I think they were pragmatic enough to know that even if they did use them, it would not have won them the war, because they were just too far gone. If they were last several more years and they had them, more of them, or they had them earlier, now into the what if. This is kind of how it was. He was one of the dudes in Telemachen, outstanding. Yes, I believe those were, it was the same size and type of reactor as in Hagelock, with the same cubes. It's cemented over somewhere in some. I think they found ways around enrichment that was less cumbersome and expensive than the Americans did. It's interesting because when you come to the nuclear weaponry into artillery shells, we see that already in the 50s, both in America, and there even was some march for the Danish military, although they were stored in Germany. So this miniaturization of nuclear technology evolves really quickly after 1945 for the Allies. And given how large the nuclear weapons were that was dropped over Japan, and cumbersome they were, to all of a sudden have miniaturized that into small missiles and shells, well, maybe they had an idea. And I'm still saying Diepner and Schumann are the people we really want to watch and see what they actually did. Schumann tried to publish a book in 1947 about the real German nuclear project, and the British would not allow him to do so. Diebner wrote one in 1955 that was published, but again, it was published in the middle of denazification under Allied control, so only God knows what he really wrote. But Diebner, in 1948, he patented a propulsion unit, a nuclear propulsion unit, a reactor for cargo ships. In the late 50s, one of these cargo ships were built with the Diebner reactor. So you telling me that post-war, in a couple of years, he came up with this concept that worked without having just sitting in a camp or not having worked with it post-war? So of course he knew how this worked during the war. He had something that worked during the war, otherwise he couldn't patent it after, and it was sailed in a German cargo ship after the war. So what they were doing, I think, is something that really needs to be watched. That too. Kamala fit into the reactor even with some. Kamala was put in charge of the SS Special and Secret Weapons projects. He was also in charge of the Special Air Force and jet fighter units. He was the one general who was able to collect and assimilate, facilitate all research information in all of Germany. He could gather any information from anywhere, from any testing. He also oversaw, he was the boss of von Braun and Dornberger and the rocket program. He oversaw the rocket programs, the construction of the rocket programs, the manufacturing of jet fighters, and special research. He would have been the one who would have built the tunnels or the factories that they were actually firing or working this from. It was all him and his people that built the facilities where this was tested. And he was the one that was privy to all the information and all the research and could have put it into fruition. That's why Kamala is important, because he rose really quickly and got a lot of power very, very quickly. Sorry, people are talking around me, but I am in a public place. I have even less Wi-Fi in my hotel room, so there. So that's why Kamala is important, because he would have been in a position where he would have known all the research. He would have facilitated his own, and he had his own research staff that had nothing to do with any of the other mainstream. Remember, Diebner and Schumann was Heereswaffenamt, was the army. Kamala was the SS, and he had the say and the money and the funding he would have needed to pursue any venue he would have wanted to create anything he would have deemed fit and important for the war. And he had long conferences directly with Hitler. What's his name? Several accounts have been written about how impressed they were with him and his work, and a lot of work was laying on his shoulders. Kamala's documentation, papers, and boxes. I don't know what was in that plane. I know there was a few women in that plane that crashed as well, some secretaries and others, which is sad. Of course, but what was in their technology? Probably not in that plane. I have a letter that is on the website from Dr. Kamala to Dr. Brandt. Dr. Brandt being one of the most idiotic acts of U.S. Am I back? Am I gone? Do I exist? Sorry. All right, at least I have the mic right here. Have you thought of talking to Nicholas Frank, Hans Frank's son? I have not thought of that. I am looking for Deepness relatives, but Hans Frank would be very interesting. Um, if any of them will talk and talk honestly, which is the hard part. I've been in contact with Hans Kamler's grandson, who seems like a very nice guy, who's very apologetic for what his grandfather did. But, sorry. I respect his life situation as well. The Wi-Fi in this place must be stressed. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm the only. It does come and go. Also, if I'm trying to stream something, it does sensitize. It does say I'm connected, and I have a little bit of a bar. Like it's. Right. Okay. So. Are we back on? I would imagine that at least the recording will somewhat be intact for. Of course, I'll leave this up afterwards. Anyway, yeah, he seems like a very nice guy, and obviously doesn't want to really talk about this in public. And I made it absolutely clear that I would not quote him or repeat anything he told me because he asked me not to. So if there's anything that really will change or break the case, I will find it through other means and respect his wishes on that, because that's fair enough. And he didn't do it. Whatever his granddad did, he didn't do it, and I expressed that to him. I don't think he should feel guilt for what he didn't do. That was done before he was even born. If your great-great-grandfather did something, I really don't think you should be blamed for it. Whether that kind of thing, I think we can bring that in on a larger scale note of what's going on in society today. No, I think it's just the Wi-Fi. It has been the way it has been. I don't think these people have a problem talking to me. Maybe I'll get David Irving to do the intro. By the way, David Irving had written a book about Himmler. It has finally been released, and I managed to get in the first 100 pages before I left. Very, very well researched. And while you can say what you like about David Irving, if you like him or not, if you agree with his conclusions or not, his research is very, very, very diligent and very, very good. And I think it's most certainly worth reading also, because I think there's 140 pages of references and footnotes, which really lends to the credibility of what he's writing. And I absolutely agree with what one of the main conclusions that of Himmler's life was that Himmler did not commit suicide. And anyway, people always complain. Yes, but the descendants, especially here, they believe they are. They believe they are on trial. They believe they are being judged for what their grandparents did. The sins of the father. Yeah, it should not go to the judge, but they still do. Just look at America today. We are all, I guess, being blamed for what someone else did 100 years ago. Yes, he did. But I don't think he did it to the degree that it has been portrayed. If you listen to some of his older, he became bitter after they really tried to screw up this man's career, and that made him bitter and that made him angry, and I understand that. I think I read Hitler's War, and I was reading it and I was trying to figure out what the problem was. And if that's what he found documentation-wise, fine. I respect that. What's the other side? Fine. I don't know. I don't have any bone to pick in either way. Fine. Let's hear them out, and if you have a counter argument, you go write your book with your counter argument. Or you have, could we please have an open and honest history society where we can honestly talk and exchange ideas? I thought that's what history was all about. Um, uh, History should be about a dialogue, a conversation to reach conclusions about what actually happened, not uh, what you want to hear or what somebody gets offended of hearing. It's history. It happened. Let's just let the facts out and let chips fall wherever they may. And you see there are still things from World War One, World War and earlier. Um, and I think that's what we are working our way into today is an honest and open distrust of media, of press, of networks, of historians, because they have somewhat deservingly the facts, and I'll make up my own opinion. Um, what did he do? Yeah, he was involved in the forged Hitler diaries, in the fact that he's the one who exposed that they were forged. When no one else wanted to hear what he said at the press conference, he exposed that those diaries were fake. So, yes, in that sense, he does, causing much embarrassment to many people. Um, but yes, and that's the thing. I think a lot of people, they don't want fake stories, and I don't know how we can, on an international level, start a body that has people that takes, like I said, politics even exists in small historical. Just if you have a fort, there are different fractions within the fort of that museum that wants different things, where the overriding effort should be to preserve the XYZ, this fort, and show it to people. You have historians that find things that they want to keep to themselves, which if it's about you doing research to write a book, okay, you don't want to blow the story until you have told everything. You don't want somebody to steal your thunder. I get that. I understand that. I have no intention of writing a book about the Special German Secret Weapon Project, so I'll post all the poetry. Probably can't, because if he write anything other than whatever zone, if he lived in the British zone or the American zone, if he wrote anything other than what that policy was, well, he wouldn't be working in that time Germany. He would lose his job. He would be censored. The book probably wouldn't be published. He could only write this hypothetical general. He could only write a book that would support the narrative wanted by the victorious allies. That's the problem with books you then read. Then you read books that was written like right after the war. Okay. By people who have clear links to intelligence. So I mean, you gotta research the information or the inclinations of the author. Could the Spear of Destiny still be around there? I thought it was sitting in a museum somewhere. No, the Spear of Destiny is sitting in a museum somewhere, or in a church, or it exists. It was found somewhere. I am almost certain that it is. Here in Australia, you didn't take prisoners in the New Guinea. So what did you do with them? It's not like, prisoners don't always have good times if you're on the losing side. Great UFO disclosure, epic fail. Total dud, never trust government or the Pentagon. Oh, no. I try to stay away from museums because, well, you guys really don't want me to walk around with a camera and film into glass cases of things that are displayed. If you want to see pictures of items, you can look them up, or you can visit the museums. Education is like. Try to be Jewish with a great uncle on my father's side who was an SS student. Well, I think there was 300,000 of various Jewish descent that served in the German army and the SS. Um, Nothing is black and white. Wrote a really good script and a book about that. We'll get to it if I actually get the damn thing done. The bureaucracy is like the death of civilization. I said that. I'm not reading it. We do not do spelling here, as we clearly know, including myself. Spelling, we don't care. Mm. There were days where everyone killed prisoners. Every army that fought World War II killed prisoners at some point. It's just, sorry, just a fact. Those who control the present control the past, yes. And we have, which is, it's very, very troubling to see how such relatively few people can control a narrative and information as we see today. Throughout armies, it killed. They did. Pretty sure. All right. Considering this chat is going to disappear, I will take a look, or send me an email and I will take a look, because paddling through 10,000 comments afterwards, it may get lost. And I do apologize. I have not responded to so many of the comments and so many of the emails. I just, like that, travel, hotel, film, hotel, sleep in car, travel, more filming. Plenty of bandwidth. It was good. Yeah, send me some. No, nobody has actually ever tried to censor me. Nobody has done or said anything. I haven't heard anything from anyone. There's been no false flags. I had one really, really weird issue with YouTube. That is really, really weird. I don't read anything into it. Sometimes when I get footage that I'm not entirely sure if I can use, I will do a private upload just for a couple of minutes, just to see if it's flagged by somebody, and if it's flagged in the sense that it's copywritten by someone, because that way I can contact that person and obtain the copyright. And I did that with something of 1930s German construction workers building a bunker and then Russian tanks rolling over the snow. That's all there was. And that got censored as hate speech. Nothing there. No music, no speeches, no flags, no symbols, nothing. Guys digging and tanks rolling. And somebody in YouTube decided that's what it was. I still have that notice. I tried to complain about it. You can't complain to these people because, well, most of the time, I'm pretty sure you talk to an AI when you talk to customer service. No idea why anybody would think that, and you can't complain, which is completely ridiculous. But that is the world of lack of customer service and direct conversation we can't have with the entities. That's why I prefer, like where I'm staying now, a private hotel owned by a family. I'd rather go to shops owned by people than corporations. And unfortunately, I met him a few years ago as he gotten older, and it's really interesting to see his previous speeches from 20, 30 years ago when he was younger and really energetic. His research, and it's very well researched, regardless of what the conclusions are. And speaking of books, there was a book written about, oh, damn it, if I refresh this thing, I honestly have no idea what will happen. So I probably shouldn't. Yeah, and I agree with you on FOIA requests. You have to try. Um, what you actually have to do is you have to go to the archives and dig through the boxes yourself. If you'll let me do that. No, a second. First grade. Diamond shaped badges. What's that? I thought, all very funny. Uh, yeah, okay, so I won't do that then. Never mind, we'll just sit here. Um, Comes and goes. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just wanted to do one. At some point in time, maybe I'll find a hotel where I can actually plug in. Yeah, all right. Now, what were we talking about? Yesterday from noon until 6 o'clock. Well, outstanding. I hope you had a few drinks for me. I love that I can sit in a little small town here and I can sit outside, I can have a cigar, and I have a beer, I bring my computer, I can sit and work, and I can order endless amounts of food and no issues with anything whatsoever. Austria is a beautiful place. It really, really is. I'm not sure I would like it here in the winter because it's been cold as crap. One of the most special things I've discovered so far, ooh, that's a good one. Every time I walk into a new tunnel system, I go, oh hell, this is bigger than the last one. And then the next one is bigger than the one before that. And then the one after that is bigger than... I am amazed at the underground construction they managed to build. At the underground structures, I am blown away. And it will never be the same to show you on video what they look like, because size is really hard to translate to a camera. But these places are amazing. I was really surprised when I found a nuclear reactor that I told you about. That will be, at this point in time, in my mind, called the evolution of modern war. Because I keep going into, especially France and Belgium, I kept going into all these fortresses that dates back to World War I, that date back to the Franco-Prussian War in the late 19th century, with technology that had been begun in construction and design before the Franco-Prussian War. So now we're looking at steel domes from steel domes rotating, all that. That was World War II. No, it was World War I. No, it was before. It was way before that. And so where did it all come from? So I'm going to start with the oldest. That's got before. It was way before that. And so where did it all come from? So I'm going to start with the oldest. That's got a couple cast. Look, so I will do a show where I sort of follow the evolution of what we see in World War II in its final stages. When people say, don't worry, that's right there when they say, trust me, I know what I'm doing. I keep wanting to go back and bring that shoe to the museum. I found in the tunnel there a couple of days ago. From one of the prisoners. That was interesting. Hey, Greece. You got some cool stuff going on out there. Oh yes, there's going to be some island hopping coming up. Besides England and Norway and Finland, also I have to go down to the Mediterranean and look at some of the fortresses down there, and Ukraine, the Baltics again. I have to go home soon and actually start editing some of this because, I have enough to pretty much keep me in editing episodes for the next 6 to 10 months. But got to shoot more, right? Pillars. What pillars? What pillars? I was talking about Minecraft. Salpaline. Oh, there's just so much cool stuff in Finland, and I swear, if I dig up one of the old Sturmgeschütz from that you got from the Germans that you buried in the Mannerheim line, I'm keeping it. I'm just saying. I dig up a Sturmgeschütz, I'm bringing it with me. Check luggage and all. It's coming home with me. I am going to Malta. That is exactly where I'm going. You know where I'm going. Underground tunnels and all the ships, all the cannons from the old dreadnoughts and stuff. Absolutely. Ardennes, I am. I've been through. I'm not really looking much at the Ardennes on this trip because there's not a whole lot to see. Black Forest, probably more interesting. The Henge, I am going to get everything translated, then I'm going to go back and then we're going to look at more what they are doing out there. Yes, I know. It's the other boxes we want, I know. I'll be in Netherlands on Tuesday night. Exchanging my rental car for another company's rental car. And this is one thing, we are all going to, at some point in time, quite probably, go to war with the rental car company, which has so far cost us a lot of trouble. When I say us, I mean me and you, because they are causing me to not be able to do things I want to do, because they are being absolutely, see you next Tuesday. So, when I wave the flag up the flagpole and say go to war against this rental car company, I expect an unrelented, completely and ruthless campaign of war and destruction and publicity of war and invoice. That was the angry rant of the day. I met Igor. Didn't get to see him this time because I do hope to turn and went back the other way. I'm not even remotely done with Poland, and I got to see Igor again. And actually, I owe him an email because I have to show him what I found. The bell machine. The problem with the bell from documentation, and I requested the documentation both from our archives and the Polish from the war crimes trials where there was anything. Really, Gustav Mannerheim? How did you end up with the wrong name then? I'm sorry, Simon. Lady of Tambus, I think I do. Is it near the 1881 museum, lady? Because I just wrote them. I figure I should go by there, although it looks very commercial. Very commercial museums are not making it up my list. Something stuck in the middle of the grassroots covered by nature, hidden holes, that sort of that's kind of where I want to go. Yes, I can give you all the coordinates. I'm trying to figure out if I should just publish my Google folder where I ping everything, the only thing I use Google for. But I have to sort of clean it up because some of it is just private friends' addresses and places that have no relation. And at some point in time, when I have time to sit and do that, I will publish my Google folder with all these places so you can actually see them. But for individual episodes, if you want the coordinates, just ping there and I'll give you the coordinate for where that specific location was. Making sure the scientist blueprint and the flying bell. The bell again, we're back to what the bell was. I am in the Netherlands. Military show when? 3rd and 4th of July. Yes, I may actually be. Is that show still on, Olaf? Is that because I know they canceled some of them. Okay, so Simon, so it's not that he could let the Germans leave a little nicer with a little more grace, but not just because girls had big hair and I think the music was better. 80 degrees, I'm good with that. Einstein said. Without being a scientist, I'm starting to think that Einstein might have been wrong about a bunch of things, or there's more to science than we have been told. Otherwise, science will run into a dead end quite soon. Cyclotron for the bell, I sort of agree with that as certainly as an option. And several of the Russian nuclear scientists went with one Ardennes to the locations of the least locations, and after the war, where he showed them sites where he installed things, including a cyclotron. So that's entirely possible. dogs. I will go to Ausletfort. I have an appointment with them, but Norway will not let me in without a 7-day quarantine, and I'm not going to sit in the hotel for 7 days and do nothing waiting for that. So I'm waiting for them to change the rules, and then I'll come in, unless I'll have to sneak through the back door. It could have been that. It could have been a few other things. James Holland. I made a point to note when I was in the tunnels at Jonasdal that I went in them and James Holland just sent a robot with a couple of crew to film the robot. Never mind. You got to go there yourself. Now that is the hotel dog, and she has to run around out here in front of the hotel and keep everybody in check. That is her job. So you're saying Norway's open? All right. I would like to go up and say hi to History Hunter, and there's a couple of people up there I really want to say hi to as well. So that is a possibility. No, her name is Susie, actually, and she's not a German Shepherd. Although I met the most adorable German Shepherd at the Henge location. 6-month puppy, absolutely, clearly would rather go home with me than with the owners, which actually annoyed them at some point when the dog wouldn't come because she'd rather play with me. Went to a phenomenal hotel. Like I said, I just go on Hotels.com the day before, and I go wherever. I have to go to this location. I'll find a whatever, as long as there's a bed in the vicinity of a couple of clicks either way. And I found this place in Czechoslovakia that was just amazing. A little family-owned, little motel with a restaurant, and it was dark, in the mountains, and you got in there at like 11:30 in the evening, and I was late, and I drove through this horrible industrial area a few miles before, and I figured, oh shit, this is going to be one of those places where I'm going to have to fight like criminals and battles and shit in the middle of the night to get out of there. And all of a sudden everything opens up, there's a little bridge, go over the little bridge, in the parking lot, and there's just lights and this little patio, people sitting, little bar, music playing. I walk up and there's a 9-week-old golden retriever puppy that comes jumping out at me. I'm like, I'm staying here longer than I thought. And it was the most amazing. This little golden retriever puppy that's just running around the hotel. It was the owner's dog, and crawling around, chasing everybody for a snack. It's just nice when there's dogs around. I seem to be able to find hotels that has dogs, dogs make things better. Really, in late May, but I would have to have canceled my trip, so I actually told them no for a couple of days. But I am kind of thinking about if I should go to Sturgis. Dogs do make things better. If it wasn't for dogs, we would be stuck with people. Black lab puppy. I love dogs. I just keep hijacking other people's dogs, because if I'm going to travel like this, I couldn't have one of my own. Any name on it, Robert? You have any paper or anything on that? Any names? Anything? Not true here. Well, I'm in California too. Well, not now, but. Lucy, are you talking about tunnels out in California? Because I know they've been digging a lot of strange tunnels out there that they don't talk much about, but something's been going on, connecting tunnels underground, supposedly. Get to the point where you can get to the point where you want to, from A to C in between. As long as I get there, I really don't care. Sorry. Not looking at girls. Would never do anything like that. The Atlantic Wall. Well, I am. Okay, as you all know, I'm trying to go they've been blowing up tunnels out there. They've been building them or blowing them up. Sorry. I'm single, bite me. I only try to go to places that have not been extensively well documented and filmed by everybody else because, well, if it's been done by everybody else, then you don't really need me to do it. Unless there's something, a thing to it, that switch to it that have not been documented, or I find things that makes the documentation of this place faulty. So I'll try to find interesting places that haven't been documented that well. But I'm doing up and down the coast in Holland. I'm just reading your comments. Hey. It's always my time. You just want to look too. That's the wonderful thing about doing this in a public place. Plus, I can order coffee. They have amazing desserts here, by the way. China Lake, yeah, I know. Yes, that's what I'm hearing. A lot of tunnels going on under there. And if somebody knew, I have a U-boat pen on my list. In a couple of days, like I said, I have to go back to Amsterdam and return that horrid rental car. And then there will be a U-boat pen. Yep, one way or another. Thank you, Lucy. And trip again. Am I allowed to do that? Yes. John, she's already gone. She went away. She works in the ice cream shop next to us. Yes, I'm sitting in a little. There's a hotel in the. There's a little walking street out here. There's 4 ice cream shops. There are 3 German restaurants, and there's a cigar shop right across. Why would I ever want to live anywhere else? There are pretty girls in Europe, but they all seem to be very tall. They're taller than when I lived here. Not sure how that happened. Oh, thank God. Well, I'll tell you, it'll come with a declaration of war. And I'll cancel payment. And I'll send a press release. And I'll sue them. Not happy with that rental car company, so we'll see how that's going to go. Anyway, so what else did we get? What did I forget to tell you? So castles. That's easy for you to save them. Only 5'9". My ex was 6'2". That was years ago. I was younger, more patient. Those mouths don't get fed. But no, it's been a really good trip, and like I said, there's been a lot of good people that really step up to come out and help up, which is very interesting. But you have very interesting conversations with people in private, because prefer it that way a lot of times. Ibn Amal, the fortress, invited me back because they wanted, I guess they liked the video I did from Ibn Amal, so they invited me back to see all the things I didn't see on the previous video, and they let me in all the old inside the battlements, inside the fortress, inside all the cannon positions, the domes, the 210, all of it. So I have everything filmed from Ibn Amal, even Canal Nord, which is I'm a little look forward to showing you because it really is an amazing restoration job that they did. And some of the cannon positions inside Ibn Amal was actually restored by an old German, which is very interesting. Oh, hang on for a minute. You asked me what one of the more impressive things I've seen was. It was a fortress, Auban, in Belgium, that I spent quite a lot of time on. that you've never heard of, but you will hear of it. And if we ever get to go tours, you will visit it with me, because this place was shot to shit when the Germans invaded, and they kept fighting. It was, hold that thought. It was, it literally was dismantled to the point where you could barely recognize what it was. When the cannons were dislodged by fire and barrels were destroyed, they pulled them in the middle of the battle, May 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, and they cut off the top, they destroyed part of the barrel, and they stuck them back in, and they kept fighting. And when you hear about Belgians and French surrendering easily or making it easy for the Germans had a better plan. Absolutely, and they had a good plan. But the fights and the battles that took on and you see the remnants and you hear the stories of how these guys fought. It is absolutely staggering. It is just staggering to hear how these guys fought to sometimes the last man, the last bullet, with everything destroyed under them. And when they finally did surrender in this fort, there's more to it, the Germans lined up and saluted them as they exited the fort. I have pictures of that. So it was interesting at the beginning of World War II. There was still this old sense of chivalry where when the forts, Belgian and French forts, had fought and held out, and they surrendered after they had no more food, no more water, no more ammunition. And at that point in time, and vastly surrounded after 8, 10, 20 days, what are you going to do? Of course, eventually and the Germans literally lined up in formation and saluted them as they exited the fort. Great stories. But Oban had something else to it that was really, really interesting. In 43, they tested a super secret Riesling shell at this fort. They tested it at several other places. But now, this is technology that I haven't actually had time to put it all together. You have underground tunnels, 30 meters underground, just like the Maginot Line forts and others. And you have the whole barracks and everything, 30 meters underground, under stone, and reinforced rebar. And you go in these tunnels, and the Germans, they sent all the local village, were all sent away for the days where they tested. First of all, because they want to make sure they didn't kill anyone, and they didn't want anybody to know what they were doing. And you see 30 meters down, you see the penetration of these shells through 30 meters of earth, stone, and rock, and reinforced cement and rebar. And you see the exit holes, and they continued. They were set so when and this is 1943 technology, 1942 technology, where these shells would come down, and when they discovered or felt a void, then they would explode. They tested hundreds of these. Now, you're standing in these, and they hit them. Now, you think about it. They literally fired these shells from afar, penetrated 30 meters underground, and hit the damn underground tunnels in the testing. That is pretty damn amazing. That's what we're doing today. And void censoring munitions, that they had that then. And to see, when you see the destruction of these things penetrating, it's just amazing. It is absolutely amazing. And that I can't wait to show you. Let's see. Okay, you guys. By the way, I gotta thank you guys for when I'm busy, and I'm traveling and doing stuff. When people are asking questions to some of the episodes where the answers are in other episodes, some of you guys answer for me, or because and I absolutely appreciate you guys doing that. I love it. It's all about conversation. And if any of you guys know the answer and you can get to it while I can't, perfect. They were the modern day Bob. Well, the modern day bunker buster, and this is a shell fired from a cannon. It's about 5, 6 feet long. Looks like it was from a cannon barrel. They tested them without explosives, so you could. Some of them are still sticking out of the wall, and then they test them with explosives, and you can clearly see the difference. And it's just Belgium has some amazing history, and tomorrow you get to see the episode where I get myself locked into one of the forts with a dying flashlight. And France has some amazing forts too. And if we ever get a lost battlefield headquarters, Fortress Platteville, I think we should just take it over, clean it up. Somebody donate a tank collection, stick it in there. That's amazing. And there's a few of those castles here, Poland, Czechia. There's castles everywhere. They're not even that expensive. Just the upkeep. You still talking about time travel? Alrighty then. What the hell? Somehow the conversation that's going on is not revolving around me. So now I can have my coffee and I can actually maybe go to the gym. Yay. There is a down around the Black Forest. I'm going to see if I can go there. And all right, give me some more questions. I have to go hurt myself some more in the gym. 6 weeks on gas station ice creams and no working out is, well, getting back to the gym hurts a lot, but that's all right. One thing I will say about National Line forts especially, everything is about walking upstairs and downstairs and upstairs and downstairs, and then there's 10 or 15 tunnels up and down and up and down and up and down. It's a lot of exercise, a lot of lunges going on there. Yeah, you knock yourself out, do what you've got to do. Well, tomorrow I'm going to Italy because there's a big alpine fortress, and I figure this is the closest I'm going to get to it, so I'll go there and I'll take a look at this enormous fortress that, again, dates back to World War I believe. I honestly have not looked much at it, except it's great. And then from there, I'm driving straight to Amsterdam, dropping off my car and getting another car from someone else. Do you sense a tone of bitterness between me and the rental car company? And then I will be doing Holland, Belgium, France, and Germany. I have to do a couple of pickups because with the drone, because it was raining last time I was there. And again, some amazing people, amazing museums have stepped up and really taken the time to show me these, which is absolutely amazing. And there's quite a few places and few events where I've gone to places and I've seen established history, even history that I thought was correct, cited by historians that I have even quoted, that I found that was not exactly correct. I have went to Fortress Lutzig, where one of the very first, where the Prussians had set up shop after the Franco-Prussian War ended. I think it was in 1879 or 76, I forget. There they started developing cannon turrets, howitzers, raising domes, turning domes. This is where all that technology really began to be developed. So I'll get to see the first of the evolution of what eventually becomes the Maginot Line and the Atlantic Wall. And it's really interesting to follow how it all started. Oh, yes, about Maria Orsic. Oh, that poor, attractive woman. Yeah, there's a thing about Maria Orsic. As far as I know, from everything I have been able to see, including all the photos of her, are all fake and she didn't exist. I cannot find any actual wartime documentation that she actually existed. No birth record can be found, and all the photos of her are doctored. One of them is actually a pretty girl's face on Hitler's body. So, much as I would love the idea of attractive long-haired women ruling the world, and Yeltsin does not seem to actually have appeared in any paperwork, in any papers, anywhere since, I think, first time she was mentioned was in the 70s or 80s. And the same thing comes from the Vril Society. Can't find any wartime documentation about them either. Not saying that they... Let me put it this way. If you guys can find any wartime documents where any mentioning, let me know. I just can't. I even applied for a birth record from where she was supposed to have been born, and there is none. So, like I said, Schauberg. Oh, I had lunch with Victor Schauberger's grandson. Very, very nice guy and a musician. And met in the Schauberger castle, and we had lunch, and we talked a lot, an interview with him. We spoke a lot about how Victor was an interesting guy. Oh, yes, I promised to talk about that, did I not? Yesterday I promised to talk about this, and there's something else I promised to talk about, and I already forgot what that was. However, when we talk about Victor Schauberger and what he said during the war, Victor Schauberger was very much a naturalist. He was very much about nature and healing. He was not at all interested in destructive war. Yes, he did research for the SS because, quite frankly, it was the only job he could get. And doing that kind of research, so they went back home. And more about that. And we're going to do an episode on him. I'm also going to do an episode on the NNF, and I'm hoping to stop by Wewelsburg and do an interview with them as well. Different story. I forgot that was the mention. I'm trying to keep track of all the questions. But Schauberger, he did say, he did have a research. Well, the problem with the repulsing, it doesn't go that way. It goes this way. It was supposed to propel something forward, not up. Dutch cigars. I'll tell you a cigar story in a minute. I figure it would be bad policy to smoke while we're having a chat here. I do smoke a cigar now and again. I do. And if they're coffee flavored, all these expensive Cuban cigars, and I could just have gone with coffee flavors. Never mind. Schauberger, he did get set up in Nordhausen or the Bergkristall tunnels with a research lab that he put in, that he had then mentioned that he couldn't stand working there because the people next to him, in the room next to, the office next to, were working on splitting the atom. Another documentation of why something was going on in these tunnels. And yes, the Austrians do not like that conversation at all. I'll get some Dutch cigars. I'm there. Egyptian underground tunnels from modern war. That sounds like a... That sounds like a you will get a Schauberger episode. He was a very, very interesting guy, and I don't think he was a bad guy. And his grandson is definitely not a bad guy. Very, very nice people. Yes, that's exactly correct. They were supposed to sell great cigars. I always liked Folio del Monterey. I like my Cuban cigars. Back in the day when I used to have a bit of money and a bit of business, I actually had cigars made that was a mix between Folio del Monterey and Cohiba. And I still have a few. It's an effort. You spend $30, $25 smoking a cigar. And I sit there, and I found these when we went to Bike Week out in out in Florida a couple of months ago, which was really interesting. There's one of the bike shops, there's a cigar shop one of the bikers have, and he had these coffee flavored cigars from, I think, the Dominican. And I used to be a member of a cigar place, and all these fancy cigars and names. Hello. I need my $800 cigar, please. All that crap. And I figured, I'll try one of these things. Flavored cigars is one of those things that is frowned upon by the in crowd, and it was just amazing. It doesn't smell of cigar smoke. It tastes like a candy bar. It doesn't go bitter towards the end. You can literally smoke it until you burn your fingers. I will say I have found a particularly new devotion to my coffee flavored cigars. Take care, Shoal. I will see you. I'll see you next time, buddy. And so anyway, that was the cigar store. I have no idea how we got there, but yeah. So that does happen. I will try those cigars. Back at work on a microphone, won't get back. Yeah, no. I mean, I have copies of everything everywhere. And Himmler smoked cigars, lots of cigars, lots of pictures of Himmler with cigars. It was interesting. Cigar flavored coffee? Probably not. I think we're just going to go with the coffee flavored cigars with sugar and cinnamon. And we'll eat the rest. They do. They do coffee flavored cigars. It's a real thing. I got them out at the little shop out at when we did Bike Week out in Florida a couple of months ago. And I got a bunch of them and figured I had to try, and they're really, really good. Really, really good. I mean, back in the day, that's one of the things you have to remember, that the world has changed. And we can't keep looking at things 70 years ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, and look at them through a sensibilities of what we believe is right or wrong today. We can't judge people based on what we now know. We have to look at it through the world of today. And back then, you smoked cigars, and it was a thing that men did. My granddad did. Sit together and all these other friends, and they would have cigars and Irish coffee. And before that, you did a lot of other things that you don't do today. But well, I figure having a couple of cigars a month is better than doing drugs. I always have. How do I test for gravity anomalies? What do I need to do that? Let's get started on German beer. Well, actually, I have no idea what beer I had last night. I did have a beer. Those ladies over there are eating a dessert that looks really good. See, that's the thing. There's always stuff that's not on the menu that shows up on other people's tables, and I have to try them. I actually don't know what beer I had last night. Smoking garden play. Yes, but if you play pool, you have to do it with girls wearing tight jeans. I just say it's a rule. Sorry. Well, I am in Austria, and there is a beer brewery right down here named Sipf that's been there for quite a while. Gravity wave detector issue. Yeah, that's what I was afraid it might have been. However, my friends out in Poland are working on a very small and portable ground penetrating radar unit, which will come in handy, especially when we are looking at things behind walls. Cow milk in Austria. I believe you. I mean, dairy in general is far better in Europe than it is in the U.S. Unfortunately, we seem to have gone completely derailed when it comes to food and nutrition in our fruit, vegetables, meat, everything in America. Some years ago, I heard that on 11 states, people have started getting shorter because of the poor nutrition in our food. I do have a little metal detecting. Have a little stick with me. when I go to these places if there's something I really want to spot check. But if I start going through these sites with a metal detector, that'll be an all-day event, and I don't think it would be productive for trying to show you guys episodes. It's something I'll probably do on my own little holiday and film if I find something. Um, Metal detecting is 90% bored, at least for you guys to look at. It will be show of shows. No, I have not been. So yeah, I mean, metal detecting is kind of it is fun. You get a little excited. You find all this stuff, but it's something I'll probably do off camera. Someone computer inside in the site, yes, and I'm getting some of this tested. Hello, David. It's absolutely terrible. I have a little DJI drone, and there's a reason why I have a little DJI drone, because in the places where you need to big registered drone, it will still fly, and I can override. And honestly, it's still a 1080 picture, so me up with a couple of diving dudes out there. So at some point in time, I'll go out and see Conan. He's hard to miss, but he's like 7 feet tall. And we'll go diving in some of the old World War II wrecks and look at what was left behind of the battlements out there. So, yes, and I love diving. One yet. And the places I needed are hundreds of meters deep in mine shafts where I would never see it again or it wouldn't be long enough. So, how do you get an alien smiley? Why can't I get an alien smiley? Come to this. I'm not sure the aliens are coming to invade us. I don't think they want us. I think we might be trying to invade them by getting away from here, at least certain people. See, a lot of people seem to be buying rocket launch platforms these days. I guess if some of these people decide to leave Earth and get it back to us, I might be okay. Cows. I got to see if I can show you this. Shit. This is the funniest picture. I found in Poland. I didn't actually process it yet. I feel bad. I don't think I responded to it. Let me see if I can find this. It was a street sign. Where did you guys lose me? You guys back? Very fun. All right, did you guys miss the story on the street sign and the cow? All right, I'm back. I don't know if you missed it, but the city over from the street coming up to the henge, from the city next to where the henge is in Ludwigsdorf, there's a street sign that I thought this was the street sign, the city sign on all sides of that city. And there's a little cow there. As a friend of mine, he took it because I could, for some reason I just forgot. This was the street sign of the city. Down from the henge, and obviously it's funny, but I thought that was the funniest damn thing I saw, and I figured I'll take a picture of it myself when I come back, and I never went back through there again. So I had one of the dudes out there take a picture and send it to me, so I'd enlarge it a little bit and took it at night, but I just thought this was funny. Somebody out there have a sense of humor, certainly. So, I don't know if there's a thing in Poland where cows are abducted by UFOs, but, they actually do have a sense of humor out there. Don't know if you ever saw that picture of the German air raid cannon, the flak cannon from the war, where there's a couple of UFOs crossed off, which I thought is stupidly funny as well. I never could figure out where that actually came from. But that is an official street sign. There's an official street sign coming in and coming out of that town. So, yeah, it was a bit funny. Yeah, if anybody would have a UFO, it probably would be the CIA. No cow abduction zone. Yes. So coming out of the city, there's the same sign with the crossover. So that would be the no cow abduction zone outside the city. I mean, how can ET be a vegetarian with all that anal probing going on? I mean, that's got to have some sort of meat interest. Yeah, the cat mutilations are really a weird thing too. There's some weird shit going on in the world. You know, politics. Oh, weird shit. The jokes we could make on that we definitely won't be doing here. Oh, that's where that was from. Was that actually from the war? Well, if that wasn't doctored after the war, that was a real photo? Because that is just how the hell did the flying saucer thing make it into German folklore? That's it. Okay, I will post that photo. I'll find it somewhere and post it. I don't have it right here, but it's and so that, I always thought it would be really nice if we could post photos in these chats or in the comments because, well, a lot of references to things. There was supposed to be a crash, so it was manipulated. Okay, that all right. Too bad. That opened really funny. More cow, yes, please, more cow. We always need more cowbell. See me now and hear me later. But there are things that happened that has been just forgotten or overlooked or neglected by history, and both on the battlefields, and I know a lot of Russian researchers are starting to come out with new research from their archives about how quite possibly Russia was preparing for an invasion of Germany at that time, which makes sense, and it also that fits in with something I read in the General Hoth's Fourth Army's diary during Barbarossa, where he wrote that they ran into Russian assembly areas. So, imagine how much could be distorted from World War II history post-war. You look at the German and the Norwegian soldiers that went up to Denmark and Norway. They were convinced they were there to protect the Norwegians or Danes from the British. They did not see themselves initially as an occupying force. There's and I keep thinking we've always been told about Gotov, the reactor Dibna had in the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute right next to Kummersdorf, and yet it's sitting there in being decaying. It was like the world's first nuclear reactor, and no one even. Well, ja, danke. And so that's one. Then you have the Heisenberg reactor that they officially didn't make work, and therefore it's being glorified and turned into a huge museum that everybody has to see, because they all have to see that the Germans had a nuclear reactor that didn't work, and Heisenberg couldn't make it work or wouldn't make it work, whatever the narrative might be. So now, and if you have history, ein kleiner?
Kleine Kaffee?
Ja, warum nicht?
Wasser dazu?
Nee, brauche ich nicht. Fisch schwimmt darin. All right, what the hell? So you're looking at that's the narrative. Germans couldn't make it work at the end. And then all of a sudden, here I'm stumbling on a third nuclear reactor. And could there be a fourth and a fifth and a sixth? So if that would be a significant part of history, if anybody would bother writing about it, it's not like they were hiding it, but no one's talking about it. No one's mentioning it. Oh, I wasn't there. And that's the problem. It doesn't take, it's only been some 70, 80 years since these events. And some of them are being just fading away from history. And that is incredibly frustrating. And that's, I know they made it work. I know they made it work. So So when it comes to something as big as was the invasion of Barbarossa a preemptive? I mean, it was always on the cards. Hitler always said he was going to go that way. We all knew he was going to go that way. It's not like it is a surprise. But did he go that way because he knew from intelligence that Stalin was going to attack him first? Was that what it was? That would change the history books. And we always said, well, Hitler started the war. Well, theoretically, the war started when France and England declared war on Germany. That's not how it's portrayed. Regardless if they did it for the right reason or not. If they started the war for that reason or not. The war started for different motivations and reasons. The Austrians in Austria, well, isn't it? They kind of got away with it because of that narrative. Shelley. So, it's one thing is what happened, then the other thing is how was it portrayed, and that course sort of makes a difference to the perception of things. Oopsie. Sorry, moving my coffee over here. Still wondering what these two ladies are eating over there. It doesn't take very much. I'm sorry. We're going to end in a little teeny weeny bit because I have to go to the gym because I can't. I got to go to bed early because tomorrow I'm driving 500 kilometers up in the Alps and I'm starting an underground tunnel. Who is he? All right, you go and have a way. Don't worry, the whole chat will be uploaded afterwards. Inserting thousands and thousands of commercials so I can get my gas paid tomorrow. Stu is waiting for me in Finland. Outstanding. Now we're going to find somebody who's actually going to freight her at home. Although I'm not entirely sure where home's going to be in the next couple of years. I do live in California because we are still got a couple of feature films to make. But I think it's time to maybe move to a different state where things are a little bit more amenable. No, I don't think they did, General. Well, I am in some 200 or 300-year-old building, so Wisconsin, cheese state. I was just filming in Wisconsin with Harley a couple of months ago. I love Wisconsin. I look forward to go back there when it's not snowing. Okay, I guess it's more than a couple of months ago. Well, I don't think they went to the moon because I really don't think they had the resources at that time. The ideas and the technology was being developed and the thoughts were being thought. But they were kind of busy trying to win the war, and I don't think they would be able to sell a moon expedition to Hitler or anyone else at the SS at that point. Yes, Ms. Yes, we were going to have Joseph was supposed to be on here today, but he could not make it because he is sitting in Storm Central, being inundated with hurricanes, and his internet is, I guess, fragile in weather, as apparently mine is here. As it just is. Everything here's good on the menu. All right, you guys. So, tomorrow, going to go up to the Italian fort and take a look at that. Then, like I said, Holland, Germany, Belgium, France, Germany, and then back to the States to start editing some of this because I really do. And then, yeah, I'll do a live stream with Joseph when we're both sort of in the same country, or I'll fly out by him and see him. They'll do one together. That's kind of what we wanted to do. And other than that, I will really try to. Yes, Bulgaria and Hungary is also on the cards. Anyway, if you have something that's really urgent or you really need to know about, send me a direct email. You have the website, And tomorrow, my little walkthrough from the first fort I saw out in Belgium is going live. Yeah. Next time we will. I don't know. Probably 10 days. Probably. Now I've heard something's going on out in Germany with some veterans. Maybe I should go out there. Goddamn kids. Who has any of General Ives historically? Yes, he writes a lot of books, that man. He really does. European. No, I'm Lucy. I'm going to go Holland, Belgium, Germany, France. That is sort of what, and then I figure I'm going to be done. Of course, I'm going to keep coming back here and come back to Europe in general, and all the other places I got to go. I got to go Norway and England and Finland and so on. But I think I'm just going to keep it down to those countries for the next 10 days, just to pick up some of the forts I wanted to see, some of the castles I wanted to see. And then go home and actually start editing and doing a little regrouping. Also, it does cost a fair bit of money. Although I'm thinking about I'm going to buy a car out here, and if we're going to start doing tours when you can all travel, there'll be some minibuses or something. There's a lot of planning that needs to be done, and I seem to be the only one doing it. So, forgive me if things takes a little longer. I also got a book to publish. Yes, I'll figure out how the Patreon works when I actually get there. I have most of the videos uploaded to my Patreon. I have one. I just really have no idea how it really works. Oh yes, we talked about. There's another question I forgot about the barracks and. Damn, what was that? There's some interesting barracks that I would like to see, and there's an interesting town hall that I would like to see. Actually, there's a whole lot of floors and a whole lot of things I would love to break up and see what's underneath, which will require some sort of funding. Because guess what? If you're in a government building or somewhere else, and you break up floors and parking lots and things and excavate, you have to clean up after yourself. I mean, really. So unless a whole bunch of engineers want to come donate their time and equipment to do that. No, concentration camps I'm not touching. I'm not doing that side of it at all. You have to connect the SS and the labor and the money. I'm doing that, but I'm sticking to what's actually. Oh, Russell and Bryce, yes. Stalag locations. I will try to swing by the castle where the German and American army fought together to fight the SS. I am going relatively close by tomorrow, depending on time. I will see if I can go. Oh, sea level. I'm going into the Alps. At least the air is fresh up here, and the food is natural. So, yay me. Hey, Kentucky. Oh, I gotta go to Kentucky. I'm girl in Kentucky. Why am I going to Kentucky again? YouTube would make Himmler blush with all the censorship they get away. Oh, the media today, good. Have had it, or could have had it. The American dream is a beautiful thing where anybody can grow up and do anything they want to do, build or create anything they would like to build and create and start a business and try to make it big. And that's something that you don't see in Europe because there are so many roadblocks to so much bureaucracy that stops, stifles, and strangles so much business, so many initiatives. And that's one thing that we need to protect in our United States. That's one thing that is really obvious when you go here, because you see where things are going. Every now and then, yeah. And that's funny. I'm sitting here in a Stars and Stripes t-shirt, waving the flag, so to speak. 20 years ago, you went to the Europe as an American, and people go, "Oh, America! I always wanted to go. Oh, this must be great." And today, when you go to Europe as an American, people look at you and go, "Oh, I'm sorry." That's sad. Yes. Anyway, I'm done with my wrangling of the library. See what Waddell he sent to Argentina. Anyway, all right. I will lose. You are more than welcome to continue the conversation as to what shape the. Go watch Airplane. Have some fun. Laugh a little bit. Eat something. Pet a dog. And buy your mom flowers while you can. Okay. I will see you as soon as I can. And yes, there will be another live with Joseph as soon as either I'll go see him, we'll do it together, or we'll do it when I have a little bit better reception and he has better weather. 4-1. So no, I haven't gone to the Vatican yet, unless they invite me to their libraries with an open research permit. But it'll be an interesting episode for the episode on fortresses. So there. Thank you, madam. There's a Junkos flying out at one of the events where they're doing a Battle of the Bulge. No, not Battle of the Bulge. One of the events in the U.S. they have one, and I was kind of hoping to go. I think they actually do jump from it. I'm fine with never having to jump from another aircraft again. Trust me. Thank you so much for the coffee money. Sitting in a restaurant editing for a day, ordering without thinking is a recipe for how much was that bill again? I have 2 days where I don't have to live off ice cream from a gas station. Although the Magnum ice creams in Europe are a lot better than in the States. Completely different recipe. Anyway. I could go on and on about food, and hopefully maybe we can do a food show here as well. You guys take care, and ping me. I will try to respond to my messages, at least when I get back. All right, be well, and I'll see you in Holland, Belgium, France, or Germany in the next 10 days. If there's anything going on or any places out there that you think I should see, shoot me direct email and put it in capital. So there. Be well, and if you figure out if the planet is round or flat, let me know.